Hi, and welcome back to Soul Space Studio Sessions. We're still in season 1, episode 5. And today we thought
Yes.
we'd just pick up sort of where we left off the last time we met, because Laurie and I just started chatting afterwards. There was so much we wanted to add to that conversation about embodiment. So, welcome. I'm Julia Frainer, and I'll let Laurie introduce herself. And you want to just kick it off, Laurie?
Yes. Sure. I'm Laurie Beausoleil, and we are a Soul Space Studio in British Columbia and in Washington. And we are zooming from from our homes, actually. And so we are crossing the border using Zoom. But Julia and I often are weaving together the two sides of the Canada-US border. And so today we're wanting to talk more about presence. We talked about embodiment in our last video, and it really led us to talk about being present in our bodies, in our lives, in this moment. Julia, I think one of the things that I was mentioning in the last video was something that you wanted to build on, felt like it needed to literally dive deeper into, and that was the experience I was telling you when I was with my grandchildren recently on a trip to California. And there was a part of me definitely dreading the experience of getting a bathing suit on and going into the pool. But I have 5 grandchildren, 4 years old and under, 2 4-year-olds, 2 2-year-olds, and an 8-month-old. And the 8-month-old had never been in a pool before. This was the first experience in the water, and I didn't want to miss that. My 4-year-old and 2-year-old grandkids want Nana in the pool. And I remember as a child, my mother and my grandmother not going in because they didn't want to be in a bathing suit. They were aware of their bodies not looking in a way that they felt they should. And I'm really determined to not be that grandmother that can't get in the pool. So I put my bathing suit on and I got in, and there were definitely moments of shame that I can't yet prevent from arising. So I just allowed them to arise. And I remembered that my body works and I can get in the pool and I can be there for them, and they can climb on me and they can swim to me. And it was a really incredible experience of being present. And there's nothing like children to help you remember what present really is.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was the story that sort of led us into talking about presence today.
Yes, it is. Present, being present. The children can teach us that, and they can teach us to be playful. And that's huge, right?
Right.
And I think play leads us to being very present in the practice that we do and the offerings that we offer with our intuitive work. We incorporate a lot of play. Now that will bring up different feelings and emotions, such as Laurie was just explaining how she's in the pool, she's playing, but yet, there's that default that says I should be shameful of my body. And so what she did, what you've done, Laurie, was you witnessed it. You witnessed what was coming up. I gave it a name, shame, and you let it go. And then you went back to being very present and playful. And that's huge. That's
Mm-hmm.
our practice too. When we have clients, when I have clients, I hate speaking for Laurie, but I think it's the same. When we have clients, it really is about getting them very present. We do have a grounding opening for each of our if it's one-on-one or in a circle or whatever it is. We do kind of have a little thing that invites everyone in, kind of a visualization, a guided visualization that brings everybody in and gets them very present. And then the intuitive art, the play art, helps everyone to kind of get playful and lost in it. And when you're having that kind of playful present time, there is no time, right? Like how many times have you created or I've created, and we get going and we're like, oh my gosh, it's been 3 hours. I had no idea, right?
Right. So you're in what they would describe as being in the zone.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I've heard from spiritual teachers, when you're in the zone, you are, and we know this, fully connected to source, fully connected to the essence that you are, and the source that feeds that essence. There is a flow that happens when you are present, when you are playing. Playing is presence.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that through my process of becoming more present in my body and becoming more present in the experiences of my life, one of the things that I've been learning about is wholeness. And in Priestess, we often connect with different goddess energies, goddess archetypes that bring a different perspective to us about what we're learning about our lives, about ourselves. And one of the most recent connections that came to me, which was not at all a surprise given that I'm a cat person, was the goddess Bast. And so I have the oracle card here that came to me the other day, and there's Bast in all her glory.
Mm-hmm.
And when I read up about her, the message that she had was this: I swirl and twirl, I hide and seek, romping and ranging, funning and frolicking. My opportunities for self-amusement are endless, and the pleasure that it gives me makes me purr. Life's challenges never stop me, for I know how to whole myself with play. Whole as in WHOLE. I know how to whole myself with play. And when I read that, I thought, that is it exactly. To whole ourselves, to make ourselves whole. That quote, "We're not meant to be perfect, we're meant to be whole," by Jane Fonda. I really, that really calls to me lately. And of course, no coincidences at that point. And Julia, you'll understand that, and any cat people listening, the perfection of watching my two cats, the one lie there in perfect, restful sleep, as they roll onto their backs and show you their tummies, that full, I am fully embodied, I'm fully present. And my other little cat, a little old girl who's the perpetual kitten, who's racing around my home, wanting me to chase her and play, at the same time as Bast is making herself known to me. This message of wholeness through play and presence, this is a key, an important key to living our fullest life.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing we've been discovering, well, a huge thing we've been discovering through our intuitive art and our journaling and our movement, because we are fully present and connect fully to our own souls, our essence, and to source in those moments
And
that become timeless.
it is timeless. And it's a beautiful thing to witness when we have others in circle that are joining us for our play shops or one-on-one clients. For me, to witness them recognizing their wholeness as well as they allow that inner child to reawaken, and also to spark the inner wise woman or man, but the inner wisdom to come out as well, right? I think that's incredible. That quote that you said, that we don't have to be perfect, but to be whole, I love that. And I think if we looked up the word perfect, I think in the dictionary we would find that to be perfect is to be whole. And when we are whole, we are perfect.
Right.
And even when we're imperfect,
yeah,
if we look at the
perfectly imperfect,
I am perfect. It's I don't know, it's just incredibly beautiful. But I've been reading this book here, and it's funny because this morning I came across this part in the book, and it's a full quote, but I'm not going to read the whole quote. This last part's just going to totally tie in with what you had just said, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're bringing Bast in and the whole goddess study that we love doing, which we will be offering also as a play shop, a goddess study.
Yes.
This quote, it's the end of the quote, and it says, to look at the goddess is to remember ourselves, to imagine ourselves whole. Right? It's it just fit perfectly. And of course
that's the flow we talked about.
Of course it fit perfectly.
Yeah.
And to imagine, this is another thing that's so important, is somewhere along the way, when that little child within us got shoved back, like, oh, that's ridiculous, or stop being a child, I remember hearing those things, and not saying that in a harsh way to my parents, but there was this point where we had to stop playing. We had to stop being a child. In fact, in the Artscape teens, they ranged between 12-year-olds and 18-year-olds. And I had brought in some bubbles and some pipe cleaners and beads to make bubble wands. And I noticed when I said to the youth in this broad range of ages who would like to make a bubble wand, it was all the ones that were about 14 and under. The other ones were like, no way, right? Somewhere
Right.
that child gets lost, which is so unfortunate. But I find that in play, we spark the imagination. And I don't have the quotes here, but if anybody's listening and you want to go research the quotes on imagination, you will find that Tesla has several, as does Einstein and other brilliant people who have changed the face of history. Imagination is huge. And so this intuitive work and playfulness and all of this being present sparks our imagination. It sparks our intuition. It reminds us to allow that inner child to come out, at the same time allowing the wise one to surface too. It's really very fun and exciting, isn't it, to be able to do that and to witness it.
It is.
Yeah. Besides getting in the pool with your grandkids, what other ways do you play and bring presence?
Well, I was just going to say that when I was, in my previous life, my first career, I was a teacher, an elementary school teacher, and I taught small children. So I taught 6 to 8-year-olds. And in the time that I was teaching, there was a resurgence of the importance of play. Sounds amazing that it was ever lost, but it was. There was a feeling that after kindergarten, children should be buckling down. It's so crazy. Anyway, so at 6 years old, you should be working all day. And we would find ourselves saying to children, there's no time for us to play. And then there was a resurgence of something called center time, or centers, when they were allowed to play as an exploratory form of learning, which is the way it should always have been, and it should have been all day, every day. But I didn't really realize that until later, and it wouldn't have fit into the job I had signed on for. But I feel that now. And so one of the things that used to amaze me was how much learning, how much growing, how much essential, as in essence, experience was happening in those play moments. And one of the things I felt guilty about as a teacher was the amount of time that I used to spend playing when I should have been buckling down to the curricular expectations. One of the things I thought of when you were talking about your teens was we used to have a buddy time when grade 7, so 13-year-olds, 12 and 13-year-olds would come down to our classroom to be big buddies to our little kids. And we used to have an activity plan, something that made it worthwhile time for everyone. But when no one was looking, I used to make it centers. And there was nothing more joyful for the grade 7s to be building Lego alongside the 6-year-olds. And that's, I think, what has been the gift for me through intuitive art, having met you, Julia, and having you introduce me to my own creativity again, that had really gone underground and had been negated because I thought it was about product and not about process. The process is the playful time. The product can be lovely. It can be wonderful. It can feel like the destination of your exploring, but really the destination is the journey along the way, and the product is just one part of that. And one of the things that I do for play now is what you taught me, which is lose myself in my own expression, in color, in the movement of the artistic creation process. Not artistic in the way of product, but artistic in the way of playing with color, playing with images, playing with imagination, like you said. So that for me is the same as putting on my frigging bathing suit and getting in that pool when I'm afraid of what other people are going to see when they see my thighs, or when they see that I have not been denying myself food. I'm forcing myself to be brave, to see what brave looks like for me when I create. So that's been huge for me. Is the play of that. And priestess is another area. I know you and I, we play with the goddesses. We arrive. This is why the image of priestess with flowers in her hair and the loose flowing skirt,
Yep.
and that stereotype of priestess that scared us both when we started, is perfect, because that is who we are when we meet with our lovely teacher Dion and our other priestess sister energies around us. We play with the goddess. We play with nature. We play with the elements, with earth, with water, air, fire, spirit. We play with the elementals. We play with the fairies. We play with the dragons. We play with the animal spirit guides. Imagination is boundless.
It's boundless.
And we experience things through our imaginations that are just as real as daily life is to everyone, right?
Absolutely.
How do you play? What do you do?
Yeah, so we've kind of talked about, you've already touched on it. It's through that creative process. I do like to blow bubbles. That's why I introduced it, to circle and to the youth, because
Yes.
I really feel that if we can do an activity that takes us to a mindless state, and blowing bubbles, not only are we doing some breath work, right? And we've created the wand, and then we blow the bubbles. It's almost mindless as you're watching that bubble take off, or you're like, oh, this just won't come out. And then you dip it in that solution again. It's a mindless state. Same with painting, we go mindless. It's usually heart to hand, right? And then we step back and we look at it. And it's in that what I call mindlessness that we really tap into our mindfulness. So there's bubbles, there's coloring, there's paint, there's just sitting in nature and watching clouds go by. And I love being here in the Pacific Northwest now, because we have days where there's a lot of clouds. Sometimes there's just so many clouds you can't see clouds go by. But watching the clouds and then imagining what images that are coming up. And the reason why that is so important to me is because I was when I lived in Las Vegas, it was early 2000s, I guess. I was picking up all the kids from school, and was a suburban full of kids, like neighborhood kids and my own kids, and they were elementary school age. And we're driving back, and all of a sudden this kid goes, "Oh, look, do you see that rabbit?" And we lived kind of in an outlay area, and I thought, oh my gosh, I hit the brakes. I don't want to hit a rabbit, because then I would be devastated, and then the kids in the car would be devastated. And they were like, no, but do you see that lizard? And I thought, oh crap, not only am I going to hit a rabbit, now I'm going to run over a lizard too. And then they were like, no, there's that dragon, the dragon. And I was like, well, I don't see any of this. What are you guys looking at? And they were like, in the clouds, duh. I literally pulled the car over, rolled down the window, stuck my head out, and do you know, I was devastated. I could not see a rabbit or a lizard or a dragon. I couldn't see anything at all. And it reminded me, oh my gosh, when did I forget? When did I forget?
Yes.
So we got home, and usually it's like, I got to do homework. I said, let's go lay out on the trampoline and you guys show me what you see in the clouds. It was just this wonderful experience. Right. So the clouds are huge for me. All of this in play. Yeah, I think it doesn't have to be anything big. You don't have to spend any money. It's just like, remember you went outside and you didn't have to come in until the streetlights came on. You never thought, gee, I don't have XYZ, or I got to go to the craft store and buy this and that. You went outside and you played until dark, right?
That's right. And when you were talking about lying on the trampoline and having the children teach you to see that, it made me think so much of the intuitive art process that you've taught me. That's what we do, is when we create, is we stop moving, stop distracting, and listen to our inner child, and have our inner child teach us to see again, through those eyes of presence and imagination and endless possibility, right?
Right.
That what you talked about with impossibility and I'm possible.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is possible through the eyes of this inner child. And that's why sometimes when we create, we're in the zone, not really zoned out, but zoned in,
Right.
really, really listening, really receiving, and then expressing. And then after that, you step back, and I'll look at my own creations and think, how did that happen through all of the layers of creating that I did? How did it create that image? As if the inner child knows what is going to come out of this. And if I get out of the way, that can be created without my interference. And when I go to explain it to someone, I have a piece of art on the wall behind me, hard to see, but in it, I used my ring, a commitment ring to myself, I dipped it in paint and I painted the rings all the way down. And at the end, when I looked at it, I realized it was a grounding cord to Mama Earth, going up through my chakras, all the way into the heavens. It wasn't on purpose, and yet that's what we do every time in Priestess, is connect to the earth and connect to the heavens and align our chakras. Mm-hmm. And it also looked as if it were my spine in the picture, and it's a silhouette of myself. I didn't create any of that on purpose, but when I go to explain it to someone, I think, well, I guess this represents, it's as if I'm hearing it for the first time too. So lying on the trampoline, letting the children teach us how to see from presence again is one way to access play in ourselves. For those of us who are lucky enough to have kids in our lives, I know that in the 4 years since I've had grandkids, this journey has intensified for me. No coincidence, I don't think, that it was the same time that I met Julia, that at the same time I was in Priestess, the same time I was playing with the goddesses, the same time many changes in my life were ready to happen. I think menopause, crondom, is a return to another childhood where we have a little bit of that 4-year-old, what we have called femella energy in it, where she doesn't really care sometimes what you think. she's just her, and it's a second childhood in many ways, or maybe not a second one, maybe we've had many, but it's definitely another one. So play and presence. And I love what you said, Julia, about mindlessness leading to her being mindfulness. Mind and brain are different things, right? Our brains can be thinking us right out of a mindful place. But our brains can be useful tools when we're mindful, and our thinking and our introspection and our reflection can come through our minds when we are in a present place.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I just want to touch on, as we're being more playful, as we're entering into this more present and mindless, to be mindful state, it sounds like, oh, that's so restful. But as we talked about being embodied and recognizing the pains and being grateful for that, or going out and playing, and all the things that we're doing to respark, rekindle, remember our true essence, it becomes really fatiguing at times. And I just want to touch on that for a moment, because you and I have, what I think is, as I started to honor more rest in my life, in the beginning, I was like, oh, I shouldn't be taking a nap right now, or I should be up at this time and out the door. And sometimes we are confined in those spaces of, yes, we have to do that. But instead of beating myself up anymore, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to stay in bed a little bit longer. It's sort of like not overindulgent. And yet there are those days that I give myself an entire day of nothing but rest. And I've learned to say, yeah, you know what? The laundry can wait another hour. The laundry can wait another day. The dishes will get cleaned. I have clean dishes in there. There is food in the cabinet. I don't have to run to the store. All the things that we beat ourselves up about. I've learned to just let it be, simply let it be, and give myself the rest.
Right.
And again, it was from one of my children that I was able to reflect back on this. It was when my number 4 went from kindergarten to first grade, and we had kindergarten was half day, right? And then first grade is full time.
Right.
This was the summer that I just gotten out of the hospital. So I had been in the hospital the whole entire 3 months. I went in the hospital when this little one was in kindergarten and finishing kindergarten, getting out of kindergarten. And I got out of the hospital right when the kids were going back to school. So I spent the entire summer in the hospital. Yeah. Anyway, so he's back at school. I'm not able to drive yet because of the drugs that I was on and everything. So I had other people dropping him off at school, and I get this call, I'm picking them up. And so I'm not really hearing immediately what's going on, and I'm not having the actual engagement as I take the kids to school with their teachers or whomever. So about 3-4 weeks into school, I get a phone call from his first grade teacher, and she says, "Mrs. Frainer, we have a slight problem with your son." And I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I'm thinking, well, he had a horrible summer. I'm just wanting to throw all these things in there because of all the stuff that was going on. I was ready to just jump in and defend. And I said, well, what is the problem? And she says, he's falling asleep after lunch. And I was like, oh, that made me laugh a little bit. I was like, okay. So my son comes home from school, and I said, hey, buddy, your teacher called today, and she's saying that you're falling asleep after lunch. And what is going on? Oh, Mama, they make me play so hard. And that's beautiful. That's how we should be, right?
Yes.
Playing so hard.
Right.
Need that extra rest to recoup. This is, again, the joy of the journey.
Right.
This is the beauty of the process. And we're all in process. It might not
Right.
just be a piece of art, and it might not just be trying to get out of this job, and it might not be coming on board with one of us to have some one-on-one coaching or joining one of our circles or any circle that you are attuned with someone. We should be in such process, so mindful, so timeless, to the point that we're just like, you just make me play so hard. That's where our essence needs to be.
You just make me play so hard. It's so perfect. That's so perfect. And that leads maybe to another possible topic at some point, Julia, that the idea of being and doing, the balance of being and doing, because within that, they just make me play so hard, presence and mindfulness and flow, there is so much natural work that occurs. Work in the sense of accomplishing things we want to accomplish, that we feel called to accomplish, as opposed to an agenda that's there for us that feels stressful or hard. And I've heard it described as effortless effort. It still requires rest and recuperation afterwards, but the effortless effort of this flow. So I look forward to talking about all sorts of different aspects of that. And I hope that the people that you've joined us today, that you contact us and let us know what you want us to hear, want to hear us talk about, what you'd like to join in the conversation about, because we're so open to the experience that everyone is having, and we're so grateful for the learning that we do through you and through each other and through our lives and through this journey towards full embodiment and full presence and joy in this life. So thank you, Julia. Thank you so much for this conversation. And
yes, thank you. And I just want to seal it with the idea of a quote from Ram Dass just came to mind. We're just walking each other home. So till next time, everyone, blessings to you.